you do with us on 365 Sports. All right, Black Sunday, Jimbo Fisher. The money was never an issue. They made this decision sometime last week at a Board of Regents. Why can't A&M find their next R.C. Slocum?
Well, the problem is that they're not looking for the next R.C. Slocum. They're looking for somebody who's better because they want to win national titles, and R.C. Slocum didn't do that. As great as he was at Texas A&M, that's not what they're trying to do. They're trying to find their Nick Saban. They're trying to find their Kirby Smart. They need to maybe just find their Coach O, a guy who can win one. That's what they need right now because that was the goal with Jimbo Fisher. If they wanted another R.C. Slocum, and I love R.C. Slocum, I think he's the greatest head coach in Texas A&M history. And Bear Bryant is in that history, but as far as an A&M coach, R.C. Slocum is the best. But they need they wanted a coach that could take them to the level of their compatriots in the SEC, of LSU and Georgia and Florida and Alabama that have all won, Tennessee that have all won Auburn won national titles. That's what they wanted. That's not what they got in Jimbo Fisher. So if they want another R.C. Slocum, there's plenty of those guys out there that can come in, but they're in the SEC. And so if they want to win SEC titles and national titles, they've got to do something different. It's weird that every coach seemingly makes them better at one certain thing, but isn't good enough at another thing that gets them undone.
Yeah, they can't find R.C. Slocum because they're not looking for R.C. Slocum, to Paul's point. They're looking for Nick Saban. That's why. And so when you're looking for Nick Saban, just average or pretty good, most of the times not good enough because it needs to be great, and they haven't been great. And their little periods of maybe flashes of being great aren't long-lasting, and there's a reality check that soon follows, and you end up in a similar situation to when you first started, which is 8-4 territory, pretty much year in and year out. And that's not good enough in their eyes, as you heard through their press conference yesterday. The expectations are much higher. I think the fact that you've got Texas and Oklahoma rolling in, particularly Texas, I think that amplifies the pressure as well to feel like you've got to do something now and that you can't afford to let's roll Jimbo back out there again next year and then go 8-4 or 7-5. But this time it's a loss to Texas and a loss to OU potentially, and that is not even the same 8-4 or 7-5 at that point, right? Now it's the same, not quite what you want, but even made worse by the fact that you're now losing to more personal rivals. So, yeah, I mean, they're not looking for R.C. Slocum. They're not necessarily looking for that long, pretty good stability. They're looking for great and now, and nothing else is going to be good enough. And so that's why, pretty simply put. And, we'll see. I don't know that there is another Nick Saban out there. Jimbo seemed like it was about as good of a candidate to be that type of a guy. Now, I know there's probably a lot of people that I'm not saying he's Nick Saban, but in terms of a big swing, big name head coach that you could go and get, they did that with Jimbo Fisher. I don't know that guy's really out there now unless it's some stunner, which is certainly possible, but that's going to be the fascinating part now moving forward is who do they feel is that guy that better positions them to be that program versus the big swing they just took.
Yeah, by the way, GMAC on Super Chat, thank you very much. Thank you, 365 Sports family, for the Texas Beef House gift card. Also, my Bearcats, Cincinnati, finally got their first Big 12 win, too. Congratulations to the Bearcats for that. So here is Sam Khan, who's going to join us in about 35 or 40 minutes. Here's the buyout. There's going to be a nice chunk right off the top, and then there are chunks as time goes by. It's not $76 million in one check, although they could probably do that too. It will be slowly but surely, methodically over time. And there are different comments on this from, that's gross, that a team or a school or a program will write a check at some point, overall $76 million. That's a drop in the bucket if they end up having to pay about $6 million a year, which is going to come out of their television money. The big chunk comes out of what is the A&M 12th Man Foundation.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. The conversation really needs to be about how badly A&M wrote the contract, in that there are all these things that also, like, it's funny when they gave them the extension. Okay, so they gave him the extension a few years ago to keep him theoretically from taking the LSU job when it was open, but LSU was not going to give him that contract, so he would not have taken it. If Jimmy Sexton called up LSU and said, you know what his contract is, we'd like you to have the same terms but more money, LSU would have been like, well, no, we've got to have a standard buyout and all these other things. Well, A&M, Jimbo could have left for LSU with no buyout. He also has no offset in the contract. So say he winds up being the coach at Mississippi State next year, because they're open now. I don't think that's going to happen, but say he took that job and they wanted Jimbo Fisher. Well, Jimbo Fisher doesn't have to give back any money that would be offset by his new contract at Mississippi State in the buyout. So A&M was going to pay this anyway, which makes the decision, while difficult to make, still, I mean, if you're going to pay the money anyway, go and hire the guy you want to hire if Jimbo's not the one anymore.
There's really no justifying spending all that money the way that it's being spent. I mean, it's like the Dark Knight scene where the Joker just sets the gobs and piles of money on fire. And, I mean, that's what it feels like. You know, that's college athletics for you, though, especially at an institution like Texas A&M where money really doesn't mean anything. And, you know, if they burn $70 million in, you know, an hour because they need to change a head coach, that they'll do that, and they'll go back to the drawing board and ask the donors for more money, and those donors will pony up more money to get the next guy who's supposed to do what Jimbo did. And then guess what? In a few years, they'll probably burn $80 million in buyout money. Oh, no, maybe this time Ross Bjork actually learned a lesson. He was asked in his press conference about whether or not they learned a lesson based on the contract and how bad it did turn out to be. And I felt he kind of sidestepped that question. I felt like he didn't really answer that you know, clearly, and just sort of maneuvered it into talking about something else. But yeah, I mean, it's a big waste of money. There's college athletics, especially big-time college football for you. I don't think that that's right, but that is what the sport is right now. It is, you know, big money contracts with big money buyouts and a lot of money being burned when a coach doesn't work out after, you know, a couple of years. So yeah, it's a strange thing anytime I think that does happen. And does feel a little bit gross, honestly, when you're talking about the type of money that we're talking about. But, you know, that is the way the sport is. And until enough people, I guess, don't make those types of big contracts, then you're going to get more and more examples of this. So, yeah, I just think, you know, like, I know the buyout's the big, you know, lightning rod thing here, or it's the A&M fell in their face again. But I'm just, you know, it was a week ago, it seemed like he was going to be somewhat okay, or at least the messaging was that, right, he was going to be able to make it through, and that maybe even was going to make it until next year. And then just obviously Ross Bjork had seen enough, even though they won this weekend and it was an impressive win, and you know your quarterback played pretty well when you've had so many injuries back there, and you know felt pretty good, I think, leaving the stadium about the effort. But little did you know at the time that was Jimbo's last game. So just very strange, and not totally surprising how quickly this came together. But it was a little bit of like, oh wait, what? They just did that? Okay, bam. All right, I guess we're moving on now into a very interesting coaching search and a much spicier carousel after this weekend.
By the way, Elijah Robinson is now the interim head coach for A&M. That was yesterday morning when Ross Bjork visited with him and told him that. He was on Matt Rule's staff at Baylor, also on Matt Rule's staff at Temple. And now he takes over for now with at least 3 games, 2 games left, including a bowl game, the football program at Texas A&M. Zach Arnett out.